There comes a time in life when the ache in your heart speaks louder than your voice ever could. You find yourself sitting in the quiet of your soul, holding on to someone who was never really holding you. And the pain of that realization cuts deep. It's not the kind of hurt that shows on the outside, but the kind that breaks you from within. You gave your time, your love, your loyalty. You stayed when leaving would have been the wiser choice. You kept fighting for someone who had already stopped caring. You kept showing up long after they started fading away. And now you're left with the question, how do you let go of someone who hurt you, someone you loved with all your heart? Just because someone once meant everything to you doesn't mean they were meant to stay forever. The hardest part isn't moving on, it's choosing to stop bleeding for someone who wouldn't even offer you a bandage. You can't heal in the same place that shattered you. You can't keep pouring your soul into someone who was only ever there to drain it. This isn't just about heartbreak. This is about healing. This is about standing in the wreckage of what you thought was love and deciding you still deserve peace. It's about looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I matter too. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. So if you're hurting, if you're still clutching the memory of someone who gave you nothing but pain, I need you to hear this. This could be your breakthrough. This pain you carry, it doesn't show up on x-rays, it doesn't bleed, it doesn't bruise, but it burns inside you like a fire that won't die out. And the worst part is that you carry it quietly, behind smiles and small talk, pretending everything's fine while knowing deep down it's not. You love someone who wounded you, someone who looked into your eyes and still chose to hurt you. And now you're left with the pieces they didn't care to pick up. But let me tell you, there is no shame in that pain. There is no weakness in your hurt. Don't let the world tell you to just get over it. Pain doesn't disappear just because time passes. You're not overreacting. You're not broken. You are healing. And healing doesn't begin with pretending you're okay. It begins the moment you stop denying your wound. It begins when you say, yes, I'm hurt. Yes, I'm broken. But no, I won't stay broken. People love to say, let it go, as if it's easy, as if you didn't build dreams with that person, as if your soul didn't trust them with everything you had. You didn't just lose them. You lost the part of yourself you shared with them. And here's the truth, you can't heal what you refuse to admit is hurting. You can't move past what you keep pretending doesn't exist. That pain you feel, it's your body and soul pointing to where you were wounded. So stop hiding from it. Let it out. Cry if you need to. Break if you must. There's strength in surrender. There's power in being honest. You don't have to be strong every minute of the day. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit, I'm not okay right now. And that's okay. Healing begins when you stop lying to yourself about how much it hurts. Pain has a cruel way of making us doubt our worth. When someone we love hurts us, we start to wonder if it was our fault, if we weren't enough, if we said or did something wrong. Those questions linger like ghosts, haunting our peace. But hear this, your pain does not mean you were unworthy. Someone else's failure to value your heart doesn't define its worth. You can't keep blaming yourself for someone else's inability to love you. That ache in your chest isn't weakness. It's proof of how deeply you cared. And that's something to be proud of. In a world full of guarded hearts and people too afraid to love, you had the courage to open yours. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's bravery. And now, with your heart in pieces, the bravest thing you can do is forgive yourself for the pain you didn't deserve and begin to love the person you've been neglecting, yourself. There will be nights when the silence is so loud, it feels like it's crushing you. The memories will hit you like waves, triggered by a song, a scent, a place, and suddenly you're back in a moment that no longer exists. That's when shame tries to creep in. That's when your mind whispers, you should be over this by now. But grief doesn't follow a schedule. Letting go isn't linear. Some days you'll feel okay. Other days you'll feel like you're falling apart. That's the truth nobody tells you. And when those heavy moments come, don't run from them. Don't bury them under distractions. Let them speak. Let them teach you. Because as cruel as pain is, it always has something to show you. It's your body's way of crying out for attention, a quiet signal that something deep inside needs care. And your heart, more than anything, needs that care. Not judgment, not shame, but simple compassion. It needs space. It needs truth. You don't owe anyone a speedy recovery. You owe yourself the grace to heal in your own time. Maybe nobody saw what really happened. Maybe they smiled at you in public and wounded you in private. Maybe the world sees them as the victim and you as the one at fault. And maybe you've been carrying that injustice like a weight chained to your spirit. But hear me. Just because others don't see your pain doesn't mean it isn't real. Just because they carry on like nothing happened doesn't mean you have to do the same. You don't need their validation to feel what you feel. You don't need their apology in order to begin healing. You are allowed to feel everything: the anger, the confusion, the heartbreak. You are allowed to be hurt by how they treated you. Stop minimizing your pain to make others more comfortable. Stop reshaping your truth because someone else can't handle it. You owe it to yourself to be honest, even when it's messy, even when no one seems to understand, because this journey isn't about them. It's about you freeing yourself from the emotional prison they left you in. Sometimes we're afraid to face our pain because we think once the tears start, they'll never stop. We think if we fall apart, no one will be there to help us put the pieces back together. But I promise you, you're stronger than your breaking point. You are more than your grief. That pain you feel right now, it won't last forever, but it will keep calling to you until you stop ignoring it. Feeling your pain is not a weakness. Burying it is. Let it rise to the surface. Let it pass through you. Don't silence it. Don't fake a smile to keep others at ease. Don't pretend you weren't wounded. Pretending doesn't heal. Feeling does. Processing does. And every time you meet that pain with compassion instead of shame, you take one more step toward peace. Healing doesn't come from avoiding the storm. It comes from walking straight through it, knowing that there's light waiting on the other side. The pain you're carrying didn't just appear. For many, it started long ago, in childhood hurt, in generational wounds, in years of being taught to hide your emotions. Somewhere along the way, you were told that strength meant silence, but that's not true. Real strength is the courage to let it out. It's saying, "This broke me," even when the words are hard to say. It's giving your heart the attention and care it was always worthy of. You don't have to live your life behind a mask. You don't have to suffer in silence. Give yourself permission to feel every ounce of it, because your heart wasn't made to be hard. It was made to love, to hurt, and to rebuild. Every tear that's fallen has watered the ground for your next beginning. Don't be ashamed of your feelings. Be proud that you've survived what you were never meant to carry alone. It's easy to look back and criticize yourself for staying too long, for trusting too deeply, for not walking away when you had the chance. But that's hindsight. At the time, you were choosing love, not foolishness. You were choosing hope, not weakness. And now that you see things more clearly, don't turn that clarity into self-blame. You weren't wrong for loving. You were brave enough to try. Shame will whisper that it was all your fault, that you were naive or blind. But healing tells a different story. It says you did the best you could with what you knew, and now you know more. Now you see more clearly. And that wisdom didn't come easy. It came through pain. But you don't have to keep carrying regret. You don't have to punish yourself for what you didn't know then. Let the past teach you, not imprison you. Acknowledge the pain, but don't build a home in it. Let it shape you into someone wiser. Let it lift you. Let it remind you that you deserved more, and that you're learning how to finally give that to yourself. Every time you deny your pain, you erase part of your story, and your story matters. Every heartbreak, every sleepless night, every moment you felt unseen, It all weaves into the strength of who you are becoming. Growth doesn't come from running away, it comes from standing still long enough to say, "This happened. It hurt, but I'm still here." That's the power of acknowledgement. That's where freedom begins. Not in blame, not in bitterness, but in owning your truth fully and without apology. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You just have to stop pretending you're fine when you're not. Let your truth breathe. Let your heart speak, even if your voice trembles. Because the moment you stop hiding is the moment you start healing. And that's what this season is about. Not shame, not silence, but restoration. Wholeness. Real, deep, honest love for yourself. So if you're sitting in the dark tonight, tired of wearing the mask, tired of holding pain that was never yours to bear, hear this. You don't have to keep hiding. And you never have to be ashamed of your heart, not even when it's broken. That pain you're feeling right now, it's not a weakness. It's a reflection of your courage. It means you dared to love, dared to open your heart, even knowing there was risk. And though that love brought hurt, it didn't destroy you. You're still here. Acknowledge the pain. Sit with it. Speak to it gently, with compassion. Give it the attention it's been asking for. And over time, you'll notice something shift. The pain won't vanish, but it will begin to soften. Not because it didn't matter, but because you finally gave it space to be heard. And in that space, in that truth, you'll begin to feel the stirrings of freedom, one honest breath at a time. Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't the pain itself, it's the silence. It's waking up each day hoping for a message that never arrives, waiting for a conversation that never happens, longing for an apology that stays trapped inside someone else's silence. You find yourself going over everything, searching for what you did wrong, trying to understand how something so deep could end so cold. And let me tell you, that is one of the most painful forms of emotional imprisonment, being locked inside a cage made of someone else's silence. But you deserve more than that. You deserve to be free. And the first step toward that freedom is understanding that closure is not promised. It's a gift, not a right. Some people leave and never look back, not because you weren't worth it, but because they lacked the strength to face what they broke. And you can't keep placing your healing in their hands. It's time to stop waiting for them to bring you peace. It's time to choose peace for yourself. Because the longer you wait for answers that may never come, the longer you hold yourself captive in a moment that's already behind you. You deserve to be free now, not later. Maybe they left without warning. Maybe they ghosted you. Maybe they treated you like a problem to avoid instead of a person to respect. And now you're stuck with the burning question, why? Why did they vanish without explanation? Why couldn't they close the chapter with dignity? Why didn't they love you enough to say goodbye the right way? But here's the truth. Some people won't offer closure because they can't face what they did. They don't want to see the hurt they caused reflected in your eyes. So instead, they run. They rewrite the story. They disappear to avoid accountability. And you're left trying to make sense of the silence. But healing doesn't come from understanding their brokenness. It comes from choosing to love yourself more than you long for their answers. It comes from realizing that their silence is not a mirror of your worth. It's a mirror of their character. And the moment you stop searching for their voice is the moment you start hearing your own again. Let that voice rise. Let it drown out the silence they left you with. Closure is something we chase when we're desperate to make sense of chaos. We tell ourselves that if we just knew why, it wouldn't hurt as much. But the truth is, even if they told you every detail, the ache wouldn't magically disappear. Because the pain isn't just about facts, it's about emotion. It's about how deeply you felt. It's about the love you gave that wasn't returned. No explanation will undo the wound of being left behind, dismissed, or ignored. What you really crave isn't closure, it's comfort. You want the pain to end. You want the story to feel complete. But some stories won't. Some chapters will close without a final sentence. And that's okay. Life doesn't always hand out clear conclusions. Sometimes peace comes when you stop trying to make everything make sense and just accept what is. Not because it's easy, but because it's what you need to move forward. Because waiting for someone else to close the door only keeps you standing in a room that's no longer yours. And you deserve to walk out, even if they never turn around. That kind of strength, the quiet, steady strength of walking away without closure, is something they may never understand. You've probably played the reunion in your mind. Thought about what you'd say if you ever saw them again. Maybe you've written a dozen unsent messages, trying to find the perfect words to make them see your pain. That need to be heard, that need to be understood. It's so human. That longing for validation is real. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing. Not because you don't care, but because you've decided to protect your peace. Because silence, when it comes from strength, can be sacred. Closure isn't a conversation, it's a choice. It's the moment you say, I won't let their silence define me. I won't let their absence control my story. You don't need to prove your pain to them. You don't need their permission to heal. Let your peace speak louder than your hurt. Let your healing speak louder than their silence. If they couldn't see your worth when they had the chance, your words now won't change their vision. But your life, your joy, your strength, your peace, that is your closure. That is your answer. We often think closure will come with an apology, with someone saying, I'm sorry, admitting they were wrong. But some people won't say those words, not because you didn't deserve them, but because their pride is louder than their conscience. Their brokenness keeps them from facing your truth. And that's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of where they are. So stop waiting. Choose to move forward. Not because they closed the door, but because you finally realized you could open a new one. While you're still holding on to hope, replaying moments and waiting for a sign, they've already moved on like none of it ever mattered. And yes, that realization stings. It cuts deep. But it also offers something powerful: freedom. Because the moment you stop waiting for their apology is the moment you start writing your own ending. One built on self-respect, not unanswered questions. You choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You stop staring into the past and begin building something meaningful from the ruins. Your story doesn't end where they abandoned it. It begins where you choose to rise from it. And that rise starts when you stop asking for closure from someone who never even earned the right to hear your questions. Letting go of the idea that closure has to come from them doesn't make the pain disappear overnight. There will still be moments when it hits you out of nowhere. There will still be mornings when you wake up wondering what it all meant. But healing isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about realizing you don't need anyone else to validate what you lived through. You felt it, you survived it, and that is enough. You don't need a final word to declare an end. You can choose right now to say, this ends here. Not because they gave you that closure, but because you gave it to yourself. That is power. That is healing. That is real closure. And when that moment comes, when you finally stop checking your phone, stop hoping for a message, stop rehearsing what you'd say if they ever reached out, that's when you realize you were the closure all along. You just needed to believe in your own voice. You gave them a piece of your heart, maybe all of it, and they walked away without even saying goodbye. That kind of abandonment shakes your faith. It makes you question if love is worth it. It tempts you to build walls just to protect what's left. But don't let one person's inability to love with courage ruin your spirit. You are still capable of loving deeply. You are still worthy of being cherished. Just because they left without integrity doesn't mean you have to lose yours. Hold your head up, even when it aches, even when your chest feels hollow. Let them walk away in the silence they chose. And you, walk forward in the strength you've earned. Because closure was never about how they left. It was always about how you choose to live after they're gone. So choose to live boldly. Choose to heal loudly. Choose to love yourself fiercely. That's how you reclaim your power. What people rarely tell you is that real closure doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in layers, in long walks, deep breaths, quiet moments of reflection. It comes when their name no longer sends you spiraling. It comes when you remember the pain but no longer feel defined by it. When you can say, yes, that hurt, but it taught me boundaries. It taught me what I will never tolerate again. That kind of closure doesn't require anyone else. It doesn't need an audience or a final scene. It just needs your choice. The choice to stop waiting and start healing. The choice to let go of what never was and embrace what still can be. There's something powerful about no longer needing anything from the one who hurt you. Not their words, not their regret, not even their understanding. When you reach that place, you've grown. You've evolved. You've taken the narrative back into your own hands. The silence that once haunted you becomes a sacred space where you finally hear your own voice again. A voice that says, I don't need them to finish my story. I'm finishing it myself. That is the voice of healing. That is the voice of wholeness. That is the voice that says, I am enough without their closure. I am enough without their presence. I am enough because I chose myself. And once that voice finds its strength, you don't look back, you stop waiting, you start walking, and with every step away from their silence, you step closer to your own freedom. So if the apology never comes, if the explanation never arrives, if they never give you the decency of closure, let it be. Let it go. Stop knocking on a door that's already closed. Your closure is not behind them. It's within you. You don't have to beg for what you can give yourself. You don't need to cling to hope for something that may never arrive. Stand tall. Take a breath. Step into the next chapter with your head held high. Not because you got all the answers, but because you finally stopped needing them. And that, right there, is where true healing begins. Because love is never meant to feel like punishment. It's not supposed to drain the life from you, leave you doubting your worth, questioning whether you're too much or not enough. Love is not supposed to silence you or make you afraid to be your whole self. If love makes you feel anxious, if it makes you shrink, if it demands that you walk on eggshells to keep the peace, then that's not love. That's control. That's manipulation. That's emotional imprisonment disguised as affection. And you deserve more. You deserve real love. The kind that nourishes your spirit, not steals from it. Real love does not crush your spirit. It doesn't need to tear you down just to feel taller. It doesn't come crashing in like a wave only to pull you back under again and again. Love should feel like shelter, a safe place to land, not a storm to survive. And if you've ever been taught that love must be earned through suffering, it's time to unlearn that lie. You are not here to bleed just to prove your loyalty. You are not meant to endure pain to be deemed worthy of affection. That is not love. That is emotional bondage. You deserve a love that brings clarity, not confusion. A love without bruises on your heart or strings tied to your worth. You deserve peace in your chest, not chaos in your thoughts. Too often we mistake intensity for love. We believe if it's passionate, unpredictable, consuming, then it must be real. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. A fire might warm you, but it can also burn everything you've built to the ground. Love that keeps you constantly guessing. Love that swings between extremes. That's not passion, it's trauma. And if someone ever tells you that their hurtful behavior is just part of how they love you, they are manipulating you. Love is not a test of how much pain you can survive. It's a promise to protect you from that pain. You should never have to beg for basic respect. You should never have to chase affection or shapeshift just to avoid being abandoned. If someone only treats you right when it suits them, that's not love, it's control. If they only show tenderness after they've caused you harm, that's not healing, it's manipulation. We have to stop romanticizing struggle love. Stop praising relationships that break you under the banner of growth. Real love does not have you witnessed was full of yelling, distance, or sacrifice without reciprocity. Maybe you were taught that being loyal means staying no matter how badly you're treated. But let me shake you awake to the truth. Love is not meant to traumatize you. It's meant to heal you. It should be the place where your soul exhales, not where it suffocates. And yes, I know how hard it is to walk away from something that feels familiar. But familiarity doesn't equal rightness. Just because you've seen dysfunction modeled as love doesn't mean you have to live it. You have the power to break that cycle. You can choose a new path, one where love is steady, honest, and kind. One where it feels like coming home, not like walking into battle. You don't have to settle for suffering just to feel connected. You are allowed to want ease. You are allowed to crave joy. You are allowed to say, "This love is costing me too much, and I'm no longer willing to pay with my peace." Yes, relationships take work, but that work should not require you to rebuild yourself every time they tear you down. That work should never mean tolerating betrayal, disrespect, or manipulation. Love should never be the reason you lose your confidence. It should never be the force that makes you question your worth daily. If that's what it's doing, you're not experiencing love. You're experiencing bondage. The right love will never ask you to silence your voice. It will help you find it. It won't demand perfection. It will accept your flaws and still choose grace. So please don't give the best parts of yourself to someone who only loves you when it's easy for them. Don't hand your heart to someone who uses your pain as a power play. Love should lift you up. Love should see you truly. And love, real, healthy, lasting love, should never feel like punishment. If you feel exhausted all the time, like you're carrying a weight that doesn't belong to you, that's your soul screaming for release. That's your spirit working overtime, trying to survive what your heart keeps mistaking for love. You're tiptoeing around your truth. You're swallowing your needs. You're doing emotional labor every day just to keep something alive that's already breaking you. And that's not love. That's survival. You were made for more than survival. You were made for love that heals, not hurts. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough for someone who thrives on your suffering. That's why you feel exhausted. That's why your smile feels forced. Deep down, you know that love isn't supposed to feel this way. Love should energize you, support you, inspire your growth, not trap you in a cycle of emotional highs followed by crushing lows. You are not crazy for craving peace. You're not selfish for wanting stability. You are not asking for too much by wanting someone who loves you without making you bleed for it. If they only show love when you're hurting, that's not love, it's control. Let that sink in. Society has glamorized toxic love for far too long. We've been conditioned to believe that love must be dramatic to be real, that pain means passion, that jealousy proves someone cares. But none of that is true. That isn't love. That's dysfunction dressed up as desire. Love shouldn't come with fear. Fear of conflict, fear of abandonment, fear of being your full self. Love should feel like a safe haven, a soft place to land when the world gets heavy. It should be the place where your heart is seen and your soul is understood. If you're constantly in survival mode with someone you love, then you're not thriving. You're coping. And that's not the life you were made for. You weren't born just to survive in relationships. You were meant to thrive in them. Don't mistake pain for proof of love. Don't call suffering devotion. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose yourself. And that choice isn't a weakness. It's power. You might be thinking, but they love me. And maybe they do, but only in the way they know how. The problem is, love without emotional maturity becomes a weapon. A person can love you and still be toxic. A person can love you and still cause harm. Love alone is not enough. You also need respect, communication, and accountability. If they can't offer you those things, their love isn't healthy, it's hurtful. You don't have to stay just because you share history. You don't have to keep sacrificing yourself for a future you once imagined. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally started loving yourself. Love should not break you into pieces you can't recognize. It should help you grow into the best version of yourself. Anyone who demands your suffering in exchange for affection is not offering love. They're offering control. And you deserve better. You don't have to earn love through pain. You don't have to prove your worth by enduring disrespect. You don't have to teach someone how to treat you by letting them hurt you first. You are worthy of love simply because you exist. Worthy of respect without having to prove your pain tolerance. And the moment you truly believe that, everything changes. Your standards rise. You stop tolerating chaos. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop begging for the bare minimum. You become rooted in your worth. And the people who truly love you will rise to meet you there. Not because you demand perfection, but because you no longer accept pain as the price of love. Let that truth settle in your bones. If love costs you your peace, it's too expensive. If no one ever told you this before, let me be the first. Love should feel safe. It should feel like alignment, not anxiety. It should feel like growth, not destruction. If the love you're holding on to is costing you your self-worth, your voice, your mental health, then it's time to let go. You were not born to carry the weight of someone else's dysfunction. You were not created to absorb their trauma and call it intimacy. Love was never meant to come with suffering as the price. You deserve a love that heals, not harms. A love that builds you, not breaks you. A love that empowers, not erases. And that kind of love begins with you. When you stop accepting pain as a language of love, you open yourself to receive the love you were always meant to experience. You know what hurts the most? It's not always what they did to you. It's what you kept doing to yourself just to keep them in your life. It's the way you silenced your voice when it was begging to be heard. The way you said, "I'm fine," is when your soul was crumbling inside. Self-betrayal isn't loud, it's quiet. It happens every time you swallow your truth. Every time you bend your boundaries just to feel needed. You call it compromise, but in your gut, you know you're giving away pieces of yourself just to be chosen. That's not love. That's survival. And you weren't meant to just survive. You were meant to flourish, but you can't do that while abandoning yourself. You can't grow while choosing them over you, over and over again. And I know all you ever wanted was to be loved, but not like this. Not at the cost of your peace. Not at the cost of your voice, not at the expense of who you truly are. There's no healing in staying loyal to someone who requires you to betray yourself just to stay connected. You owe yourself better, and it starts the moment you stop abandoning who you are. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself, and if you constantly ignore your needs, tolerate disrespect, and swallow your truth, they'll do the same. That's the pattern. That's the cycle. And it won't break until you decide you're worthy of more. You can't keep expecting others to value what you don't even protect. Your time, your energy, your love. These are sacred, but if you keep handing them to people who don't honor them, you're silently telling the world you're okay with less than you deserve. That's not humility. That's self-neglect, and it has to stop. You weren't put here to be everyone's emotional dumping ground, to keep proving your worth to people who only show up when it suits them. It's time to stop betraying yourself in the name of loyalty, because loyalty to others means nothing if it comes at the cost of betraying your soul. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you shouldn't try. Fill yourself. Protect your spirit. Love yourself out loud. Because when you stop betraying yourself, you start attracting people who won't either. There's a version of you buried beneath years of self-sacrifice, under the constant weight of trying to keep everyone else happy. And that version is tired. It's waiting for you to finally choose yourself. Self-betrayal often shows up quietly, in people-pleasing, in smiling through the pain, in nodding yes when your heart is screaming no, in pretending everything's fine just to avoid conflict. But you don't have to keep doing that. You don't have to be the strong one all the time or carry the emotional weight of others to feel worthy. You don't have to shrink to fit spaces that were never meant for you. That's not your job. Your job is to be true, to be whole, to stop trading your peace for temporary connection, to stop handing your worth to people who don't even know how to hold their own. When you finally choose you, you don't lose others. You lose the illusion that abandoning yourself was love. And that is the greatest freedom you can ever know. You may have been taught that love is selflessness, but somewhere along the way, they twisted that into self-erasure. You kept giving until there was nothing left. And when they walked away, you were left trying to rebuild someone you barely recognized. That's what self-betrayal does. It disconnects you from your own identity, makes you forget your needs, your joy, your dreams, because your whole life becomes about theirs. But you matter. Your needs matter. Your voice matters. And love is not love if it requires you to disappear. The right people won't need you to abandon yourself to earn a seat at the table. They'll make space for the real you, your voice, your growth, your emotions. And until those people arrive, you show up for yourself every single day, fully and without apology. Because your first relationship is with you, and if you keep betraying yourself, you'll keep attracting people who do the same. You're not tired because life is unfair. You're tired because you're constantly at war with your own soul. You know what you need, but you keep ignoring it. You see the red flags, but you keep justifying them. You feel the patterns, but you convince yourself, this time it's different. That's the exhaustion of living a lie dressed up as loyalty. You're not crazy. You're just disconnected from your truth. And that disconnection runs deep, built over years of being told that your feelings are too much, your needs are selfish, your voice is inconvenient. But that ends now, because every time you abandon yourself, you give away your power. And your healing begins the moment you stop looking for someone else to give you what you won't give to yourself. Give yourself permission to feel, to speak, to walk away, to say no. Let self-loyalty become your new standard. Let peace be your new home. You don't need to betray yourself to belong. You just need to come back to you. Be patient with yourself. One of the hardest things to admit is how often we abandon ourselves just to avoid being abandoned by someone else. You think if you just wait a little longer, try a little harder, forgive a little more, they'll finally change. They'll finally love you the way you deserve. But deep down, you already know the truth. You feel the cost. Your anxiety is louder. Your joy is fading. Your heart is tired, because love should never come at the cost of your soul. And you don't need more time to figure that out. You need the courage to accept it. You don't need to fix them. You need to free yourself, because self-betrayal is a prison disguised as love. And the key has always been in your hands. You can leave. You can choose peace. You can begin again. And this time you stay with you fully, faithfully, fiercely. You have to stop betraying yourself every time someone makes you feel like you're too hard to love, because that belief is their wound, not your truth. That's their limitation, not your flaw. You don't have to shrink so they can feel important. And you don't have to quiet your truth so they can feel secure. Real love will never ask you to silence your voice or prove your worth through pain. And if you keep abandoning yourself just to fit inside someone else's idea of love, you'll always feel small, always feel empty, always feel unseen. But you were not created to live small. You were made to stand tall in your truth, to shine in your wholeness, to live without apology. The moment you stop letting go of you in order to hold on to them, you begin holding something far more valuable, your self-worth, your dignity, your light. And that shift right there is the beginning of transformation. Real power isn't found in pretending you're okay or forcing a smile when your heart says no. It's found in living in alignment with your truth, in honoring your feelings even when they make others uncomfortable, in refusing to betray yourself just to keep the peace. Because peace built on self-abandonment isn't real peace. It's a ticking time bomb. Sooner or later, the real you will rise. And when she does, she'll ask why you kept choosing others over her, why you silenced her voice, ignored her pain, dismissed her needs. Don't wait for that reckoning. Choose your truth now. Stand in your worth now. Because that's how you break the cycle and begin to heal. And that healing starts with one decision: to stop betraying the one person who's been with you through it all, you. You don't have to keep living like this. Don't have to keep giving the best of yourself to people who only give you their worst. You don't have to keep begging to be seen, explaining your boundaries, or proving your worth to anyone. That's the cycle of self-betrayal, and it ends when you decide it ends. You are not too much. You are not too broken. You are not unworthy. You are a whole human being with dreams, emotions, and dignity. And anyone who makes you feel like loving you is supposed to hurt isn't your person. They never were. So stop abandoning yourself to chase love, because the love you're searching for is already inside of you. And the moment you stop betraying yourself, you become magnetic to the kind of love that doesn't hurt. The love that stays, that sees you, that honors your soul. Choose you boldly, without shame, without hesitation, because you are not too much for the right heart. You've just been too little for your own, and that ends now. There comes a moment when you look in the mirror and hardly recognize who's staring back. Not because you've changed, but because you've lost connection with your true self. You've spent so long catering to everyone else, wearing masks to gain approval, pretending to be fine just to keep the peace, that you've forgotten what your real reflection looks like. Rebuilding that relationship with yourself begins with honesty. It begins when you admit, "I miss me." It begins when you realize that somewhere along the way, you abandoned your dreams, your needs, your voice to make someone else comfortable. And while that was never your fault, it's now your responsibility to come back to you. Not the version shaped by heartbreak or shaped by others' opinions, but the real you, the one who's been quietly waiting beneath all the noise. No, it won't be easy. There will be days when self-love feels unnatural, when you question your worth, when you wonder if you're doing it right, but don't stop. Keep showing up. Keep listening to yourself. Because the relationship you have with you is the foundation of every other connection in your life. You rebuild it slowly, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. Because you can't heal while rejecting the one person who needs you most, yourself. You've been there through every heartbreak, every silent cry, every lonely night. Yet so often, you treat yourself like a stranger. You shame yourself for needing rest, for being emotional, for not being perfect. But you would never talk to someone you love that way. So why do it to yourself? Healing begins with compassion, with whispering, "I'm still proud of you," even when you fall. It begins with forgiving yourself for what you didn't know, for what you had to learn the hard way. Rebuilding your relationship with yourself means becoming your own safe place. Not just when things go right, but especially when they don't. Can you hold your own hand when the world lets go? Can you say, "I love you," even on the messy days? That's the work. That's the practice. That's what makes you whole. Not perfection, but choosing every single day to love yourself through it all. You're not too far gone. You're just one honest moment away from coming home to you. You've been looking for someone to save you, someone to show up and finally see your worth, but the truth is, you are the rescue. You are the hand you've been waiting for. What if you're not meant to be found by someone else, but meant to finally see yourself? What if all this time you've been chasing in others the very things you were meant to give to yourself? Validation, love, patience, forgiveness. Rebuilding your relationship with yourself begins the moment you stop outsourcing your worth. The moment you stop needing applause to believe in your gifts. The moment you can stand in front of a mirror and say, "I matter," even if no one claps. "I'm enough," even if no one says so. The way you speak to yourself sets the tone for everything in your life. When you believe you're worthy, you stop chasing people who make you question it. When you love yourself fully, you stop settling for love that's given in fragments. The world will always reflect back what you hold inside. So if you want loyalty, offer it to yourself first. If you want peace, create it within. If you want love, pour it into your own soul. Don't wait for someone else to lead you back to you. Be your own guide. Because you were never meant to live through someone else's lens or measure your value by who stayed, who left, or who never saw you. That heartbreak, that pain, it's not your definition. It's a reminder of the places you forgot to nurture. And sometimes life has to break you just to show you what's real. In that rubble, in the stillness, you get to meet yourself again. Not the wounded, people-pleasing version, but the real, powerful, whole you. The version that once dreamed fearlessly, loved openly, danced freely, laughed loudly, and hoped without apology. Rebuilding that connection doesn't happen through force, but through love, through patience, through grace. It's the process of remembering that you are not too broken to be healed, not too far gone to be found, not unlovable just because someone else didn't know how to love you. You are unlearning who they told you to be so you can remember who you truly are. And that is not weakness. That is your greatest strength. Choosing to love yourself back to life. You can't rebuild anything if you keep punishing yourself for where you've been. You made choices from survival. You stayed when you should have left. You gave what you didn't have. You lost yourself in someone who didn't see you. But that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You've already survived. You've already paid the price. It's time now to rebuild, not with guilt, but with grace. Not with self-blame, but with healing. You're allowed to forgive yourself. You're allowed to let go of the weight. Every day is a brick. Every kind word to your reflection, every honest boundary, every moment of self-awareness. It's all construction. You are building a home inside yourself, one that doesn't abandon, one that feels safe, one that stands even when the world tries to crumble. Stop tearing yourself down while trying to heal. Start again with love. Start again right now. Rebuilding your relationship with yourself requires silence, space, a step back from the noise, the opinions, the distractions. It requires you to turn inward and listen, because the answers you've been looking for were never out there. They've always been within. But you can't hear your own truth when you're constantly numbing, scrolling, comparing, distracting. The healing lives in the stillness, in the quiet moments when you ask, "What do I need?" And actually stay long enough to hear the answer. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need to stop explaining yourself. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for all the ways you left your own needs behind. Whatever it is, it won't come from the outside. It will come from attention, from presence, from choosing to stop running. Sit with yourself. Let the tears come if they need to. Laugh if it rises up. Just don't abandon yourself anymore. Because the moment you stop running is the moment healing begins. Not by adding more, but by stripping away what was never meant to stay. What remains. That's the real you. That's the version that's worth everything. You cannot rebuild your life with tools meant to destroy it. If all you do is criticize your reflection, belittle your growth, and compare your healing to others, you'll stay stuck in a chapter you were meant to grow beyond. Growth isn't about how fast you go, it's about the direction you choose. And if today you chose kindness over perfection, honesty over performance, presence over pressure, then yes, you are healing. Stop demanding flawless progress. This is your journey. This is your rebuild. No one else gets to define what that should look like. The old version of you, the one who begged to be seen, who tolerated disrespect just to feel loved, was operating from a place of pain. But the you that's rising now is choosing differently, choosing peace, choosing self-respect, choosing to heal without hiding. And even if no one notices, even if no one claps, even if they don't understand your growth, you keep building anyway. Because this home you're creating inside your soul, this sanctuary of peace and strength, it's not for them, it's for you. Your healing, your power, your future. Keep going. Keep laying each brick one day at a time. You'll discover your power the moment you stop waiting for permission to be who you are. Rebuilding your relationship with yourself means you no longer need people to validate your emotions, your boundaries, your dreams. You've spent enough time shrinking, enough time dimming your light to make others comfortable. But you were never too much. You were just too much for those who didn't know how to love deeply. And that's not a flaw. That's your brilliance. That's your power. You don't need to be smaller to be loved. You just need to walk boldly in your truth and let anyone who can't meet you there fall away. That's not selfish. That's sacred. That's what self-honor looks like. You've been bending too long to fit into places you've outgrown. It's time to stand. It's time to root yourself in who you are, even when it's uncomfortable. You cannot rebuild your life on shaky foundations that were never built to support you. So tear it down. The false stories, the old lies, the wounds you've worn like names. Let them go, and in their place lay down truth. Lay down love. Lay down deep, lasting self-connection. That's how you move forward. The more you learn to love yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for things that wound you. And that's how you'll know the healing is real. Because you'll stop chasing people who ghost you. Stop begging for closure. Stop explaining your worth to those who can't see it. You'll finally understand on your soul. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about deciding not to carry it anymore. They might never apologize. They might never admit the damage. But your freedom cannot depend on their accountability. You forgive because peace is worth more than pride. You forgive because you're tired of waking up with yesterday still weighing on today. It won't happen all at once. Some days you'll feel like you've let go, and others you'll hear a song, see a photo, and it all comes flooding back. But every time you choose peace over bitterness, you are taking your power back. Every time you refuse to let what they did define your identity, you are rising. Forgiveness is not about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about refusing to let it own you. It's about saying, you hurt me, but I choose to heal. It's about freeing yourself again and again. You acknowledge it, you feel it, and you release it. Not for them, but for you. Because you deserve to breathe without the weight, to move without the drag of the past, to smile without forcing it. Forgiveness is the gift you give to yourself, the release from a prison you never belonged in. And yes, you have every right to be angry, but you also have every right to be free. You have every right to feel what you feel, every right to grieve, to be angry, to sit with the pain. But at some point, you have to ask yourself how long you're going to let that pain have power over your life. How long will you carry a grudge so sharp it cuts you every time their name crosses your mind? Because here's the truth. Your anger might be valid, but it's also heavy. It drains your joy, clouds your peace, and makes you question whether happiness is even possible again. Forgiveness is the key that opens the door back to yourself. It doesn't excuse what they did, and it doesn't mean you let them back in. It means you choose yourself over the pain, choose light over the darkness that's been swallowing you. It's not pretending you're not hurt. It's deciding not to let that hurt harden you. You forgive so you don't become what broke you. You forgive so you can sleep better, breathe easier, laugh without heaviness. Because the longer you hold on, the deeper the pain weaves itself into your identity. Let it go, not for them, but for you, for the future version of you who's waiting on the other side of that release. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's one of the bravest, most powerful decisions you'll ever make. Some people will never say sorry. They'll never admit they were wrong, never take accountability. And you'll wait, hoping for that one conversation, that one moment of truth. But what if it never comes? Do you stay broken forever? Do you keep your heart chained? It only keeps you locked in a story that no longer serves you. Forgiveness is not erasing the pain, it's choosing not to be defined by it. It's standing in your truth and saying, yes, it happened, but I get to decide what happens now. That's your power. That's the strength you've had all along. You are not weak for forgiving. You are free. You're done being a prisoner to what was. It's time to set yourself free. Somewhere along the way, you built walls so high to protect your heart that you forgot what peace feels like. You convinced yourself, it's better this way. If no one gets close, no one can hurt me. But the truth is, those walls didn't just keep pain out. They've kept healing from getting in. Forgiveness tears down those walls, brick by brick, and lets the light back in. It lets love in again. Not their love, not the broken kind, but real love, self-love, soul-deep love. When you forgive, you make room for joy. You clear the wreckage so something better can grow. You stop clinging to ashes and start rising. You give yourself permission to begin again. And yes, it takes courage, but you've already survived the worst. Now it's time to live the best. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to begin. Choose today to no longer carry what was never yours to hold. Lay it down. The pain, the betrayal, the anger, all of it. Say to yourself, I deserve better, and it starts with me. You'll never change the past, but you can change how much control it has over your future. That's what forgiveness gives you. It hands you back the keys to your own life. It says, you don't get to live rent-free in my mind anymore. You don't get to define who I become. That's not weakness. That's power. That's a declaration of freedom. And when you step into that freedom, something shifts. You become dangerous in the best way, because healed people, free people, they can't be manipulated by fear or bitterness. They live with depth. They love without apology. They rise and they keep rising. That's who you are becoming. That's who you've always been beneath the scars. So don't let one broken chapter keep you from writing the rest of your story. You have too much life ahead to stay stuck in what was. So today, even if your voice shakes, choose to let go. Choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because you've got places to go, joy to feel, and love to receive. You are not what happened to you. You are who you choose to become next. There's a difference between forgiving and forgetting. You don't have to erase the memory to move forward. In fact, remembering can be a powerful tool for growth. It helps you set healthier boundaries, guard your peace, and make wiser choices. But there's a difference between remembering and reliving. Forgiveness gives you the ability to look back without falling apart, to say, yes, that hurt me, but it no longer owns me. That's where true healing begins, in the space between holding the memory and releasing the pain. You can honor your past without being chained to it. You can carry the lessons and lay down the poison. That's not denial, it's strength, it's wisdom, it's grace. Forgiveness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet whisper in your soul saying, I'm tired of carrying this. I'm ready to breathe again. And that whisper is your turning point. That's the moment your life starts to shift. You've worn your pain like armor, thinking it made you stronger, but real strength isn't in how long you can hold on. It's in your ability to let go. You don't have to keep proving how deep the wound was by holding on to it. You already proved it by surviving it. Now prove something else. Prove you can rise. Prove you can smile without bitterness. Prove that they didn't win. Because forgiveness is that proof. It's evidence that your spirit is bigger than what tried to break it. It's not about excusing what happened. It's about refusing to let it control you anymore. You've carried that weight long enough. You've cried enough tears. You've sacrificed enough joy. Now it's your time to rise, to rebuild, to reclaim what was always yours. Forgiveness isn't a one-time event. It's a practice. It's waking up every day and choosing not to let your peace be stolen. It's saying, this ends with me. It's no longer giving energy to people who never deserved it. It's rewriting your story in strength instead of pain. And every time you choose peace over resentment, freedom over bitterness, you're not just healing, you're creating legacy. You're breaking cycles. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. You don't owe them anything, but you owe yourself everything. Your peace, your presence, your future. And that journey doesn't begin when they apologize. It begins the moment you decide you deserve to feel free. It begins when you choose to stop dragging the chain of what hurt you and start walking in the direction of what heals you. Forgiveness is not about making peace with them. It's about making peace with yourself. It's about giving yourself the gift of a quiet mind, of mornings without anger, of nights without replaying the past. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve freedom. Some wounds may never get an apology, and some people may never own what they did. But that doesn't mean you have to live stuck in that moment. You've already suffered enough. It's time to stop letting their absence of accountability pause your life. You're not excusing it. You're rising above it. You're saying, I choose me now. I choose joy now. I choose to live, not in the shadow of what was, but in the light of what can be. Forgiveness is how you reclaim your power. It's how you breathe differently, speak differently, live differently, and you do it for you, for your heart, for your healing, for the version of you that deserves a future filled with peace. So start today, even if it's small. Release what was, embrace what is, trust what's coming.